The desert was endless. The sun blazed high in the sky, and the sand stretched out as far as the eye could see. There was no water, no shade, just heat and dust. It was a place where most beings wouldn't survive for long. A young alien girl lay in the sand, struggling to breathe. Her skin, once smooth and strong, now burned from the sun. She had been walking for what felt like days, but she was lost. Her ship had crashed, and her technology was broken. She couldn't call for help. She had no way to fix her equipment. She was alone. Her species was known across the galaxy for their amazing technology and strength. But right now, none of that mattered. She was weak, disabled, and stuck in a place where even the strongest couldn't survive. The alien girl tried to stand, but her legs buckled beneath her. She fell back into the sand, too tired to move. She felt hopeless. She had always been proud of her people. They could do anything, travel to distant stars, explore unknown worlds. But now, in this desert, she was nothing. She closed her eyes for a moment, trying to gather her strength. Her body ached, and her head spun. She thought about her family, about her planet. What would they think if they knew she was stuck here, all alone? She had never imagined this would happen. She had always been so careful. A small part of her wondered if she would ever make it out of this desert. But she couldn't give up. Not yet. She refused to let this desert defeat her. With great effort, she lifted her head and looked around. There had to be someone out there. She couldn't let herself die here. Not like this. The heat of the desert seemed to never end. The sand stretched on and on, with no sign of life. But then, a figure appeared in the distance. A human, walking across the desert with steady steps. His boots left marks in the sand as he moved forward, his eyes scanning the endless horizon. This human was on a mission, exploring the unknown parts of the planet. He had trained for months, ready for whatever challenges this world could throw at him. But nothing had prepared him for what he was about to find. As he walked, something caught his eye, a strange shape lying on the sand. He squinted, wondering if it was just a trick of the heat. But no, it was real. There, in the middle of the desert, was a figure. A small alien girl, struggling to stay alive. The human's heart skipped a beat. He had heard stories of alien species, but never imagined he would meet one like this. She was clearly in trouble, weak and alone. The human felt a mix of fear and concern. He had no idea what kind of alien she was or if she could be trusted, but he knew one thing: she needed help. He hesitated for a moment. Could he trust her? Was it safe to get close? But when he saw her struggling to lift her head, his decision was made. He couldn't leave her here. He walked toward her carefully, his voice soft as he called out, "Hey, are you okay? I'm here to help." The alien girl looked up, her eyes full of fear and confusion. She had never seen a human before, and everything inside her told her to be cautious. Humans were not known for being kind or trustworthy. But her body was too weak to resist, and her pride couldn't fight the need for help. The human knelt beside her, offering her water. "I won't hurt you. Just drink," he said gently. She stared at him, unsure. But her thirst was stronger than her fear. The desert was not kind to travelers. The sun beat down, and the air was thick with heat. But now, the alien girl was not alone. The human stayed by her side, helping her in ways she never expected. At first, she couldn't believe she needed help from a human. She was a proud alien, used to relying on her own strength. But her body was weak, and the desert showed no mercy. The human offered her food and water, things she hadn't had in days. "We need to keep moving," the human said, his voice calm. "I know a place where we can rest." The alien girl didn't want to admit it, but she was too tired to argue. She nodded slowly, letting him help her to her feet. The pain in her legs was unbearable, but she knew she couldn't stop. As they walked, the human showed her how to find shade, how to stay cool in the heat. He taught her simple ways to survive in the desert. He even showed her how to dig small holes in the sand, where cool air could be found. Your people might have great technology, the human said one evening, but sometimes, simple things can keep you alive. The alien girl was surprised. She had always thought of humans as weak and primitive, but this human was different. He was strong, resourceful, and kind. The more she watched him, the more she realized that humans had their own way of surviving, even without fancy technology. That night, they sat by a small fire. The alien girl felt the warmth on her face, but it was the human's kindness that warmed her heart. She didn't know why, but she was beginning to trust him. "You're not like I thought," she said quietly. The human smiled, tired but happy. "I guess we're all different," he replied. "But right now, we're in this together." The desert was even harsher now. The sun was low, but it still burned. The alien girl's body was weak, and every step felt like it could be her last. They had been walking for hours, and she was starting to lose hope. "We're close," the human said, glancing at the map. His voice sounded confident, but the alien girl could see the worry in his eyes. She had seen it before, in the way he looked at her when she stumbled, the way his hands shook when he gave her water. She wasn't the only one struggling. Her legs gave way again. She collapsed into the sand, her breath shallow. Her heart pounded in her chest, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't get back up. The human knelt beside her, his face filled with concern. "We can rest here for a while." "Just a short break," he said, but the alien girl could see the truth. There wasn't much time. The safe place was still far away, and she wasn't sure she could make it. "I can't keep going," she whispered. Her voice was weak, and her pride was gone. She felt helpless. The human's face softened. "You don't have to. I'll carry you." The alien girl looked at him in disbelief. "You can't. It's too far." But the human didn't hesitate. He carefully lifted her, his arms strong despite the heat and the weight. The desert seemed endless, but the human didn't stop. He kept going, his steps steady. Every few minutes he would pause, checking on her, making sure she was okay. "I'm not going to let you give up," he said. The alien girl felt a strange warmth inside her. It wasn't just from the human strength, it was the kindness he was showing. In this moment, she realized he wasn't just carrying her physically. He was carrying her hope. She closed her eyes, feeling a new strength inside her. Maybe she could make it after all. The journey was over. The alien girl looked around at the safe place they had finally reached. The sun was low, casting a warm, golden light across the land. It was a peaceful spot, far from the dangers of the desert. The human set her down gently, his face tired but full of relief. She didn't speak at first, just watched him as he worked. He built a small shelter for them, setting up a fire. His hands moved with calm, practiced ease, while she sat, still recovering from the long walk. Her body was no longer weak, but her mind was still racing. She had been through so much, and it was hard to believe it was finally over. "You're going to be okay now," the human said, looking at her with a soft smile. The alien girl looked up at him. She had never imagined that a human would help her, let alone save her life. She had always thought humans were weak, but now, she saw them in a different light. This human had carried her when she could not walk, given her strength when she had none. "Thank you," she said, her voice quiet but sincere. It was hard to admit, but she couldn't deny it any longer. She had survived because of him. The human smiled. "I didn't do it alone. We made it together. For the first time, the alien girl felt something she had never felt before. She wasn't just an alien girl from a faraway planet. She was a survivor, and she had someone to thank for that. As the night fell and they sat together by the fire, the alien girl thought about the future. Her people might be strong, but they didn't know everything. They didn't know what it was like to survive without the best technology, to depend on each other when there was nothing else. Maybe, she thought, there was more to strength than technology. Maybe it was about trust. About being there for each other when it mattered most. And maybe, just maybe, the human had taught her that.